This is Unit 7, Target 3 and 4 homework, number 29. It says find the distance between the 2 points. Let's start by graphing and using the Pythagorean theorem, and then I will show you how to do it using the distance formula and show you that those two do the exact same thing. R is at the point 0, 1, and S is at the point 6, 3.5. So I'm going to have to work with a decimal. My point's taking up a big 3.5 there. The strategy for working with a graph is to create a right triangle. And so I can do that. And then once I have the right triangle, I can count the boxes and see what the side lengths are. So for the horizontal, or the x, I went from 0 over to 6, so that was 6 units. And then for the y values, I went from 1 up to 3.5, so that was 2.5. And then I can use the Pythagorean theorem to find my distance. So 6 squared plus 2.5 squared is going to equal my distance squared. 6 squared is 36. 2.5 squared is 6.25. 36 plus 6.25 is 42.25. If I take the square root, 42.25, I do get a nice decimal answer. My distance is going to equal 6.5. And that's after I took the square root on both sides. The square root of d squared is d. The square root of 42.25 is 6.5. And that's an exact value. When you have decimals, the graph becomes harder to use. In some decimals, it becomes very hard to use. You're gonna wind up doing the same things you would have done with the distance formula instead of just counting and getting the numbers right away. So this is good practice to use the distance formula as well. The distance formula says that we're going to do the Pythagorean theorem. So the very last thing we did in this process over here was we took the square root. That's because the distance squared is given, and so you have to find the square root of that to find the distance. The square root takes care of the distance squared. So distance equals the square root of, and then we say a squared plus b squared, but really we're just talking about the horizontal side and the vertical side. And so we can get those by using the distances between x and y. So x2 minus x1 is how you find the horizontal distance or difference between the two. And then y2 minus y1 is the vertical distance or difference between the two. It doesn't matter which point you start at. This time I'm going to say that x1, y1 is 0, 1, and x2, y2 is 6 and 3.5. So my distance is equal to x2 minus x1, so 6 minus 0 squared, which is going to give me that 6 squared value. And then the y value is equal to 3.5 minus 1 squared, which is going to give me that 2.5 value that we're going to use, or that we did use in the Pythagorean theorem. So the distance is equal to 6 squared plus 2.5 squared. Distance is equal to the square root of 36 plus 6.5, which equals the square root of 42.5. And the square root of 42.5 we said was 6.5. So it doesn't matter if you use the Pythagorean theorem or the distance formula. You must be able to do both for Unit 7.